Namaste. Welcome to the Happy Jack Yoga Podcast. I'm Happy Jack, live from the headquarters, Muskoka, Ontario, Canada. And I am here with.
Happy Hanna also at the headquarters. I'm like one floor up from Happy Jack. So we're podcasting on top of each other like this.
Yeah, yeah, and it's good. It feels so good to be home. And I must say, if we come across a little bit, what's the word? I don't know, flustered or ungrounded. It could be we just were out
That's
at.
because we are ungrounded.
That's because we are. Well, we just stayed at a beautiful at my brother's place. My brother and his family are out of town for a hockey game in Buffalo, New York, for a big hockey tournament with their kids. And so they asked us to house sit and dog sit. So we've been out there, which is so beautiful. And we just rolled into fast Wi-Fi just in time, but we made it. We're here. I must say, I'm not sick, but it's kind of like when you come down off of a high or live in a boot camp life and then you just like decompress and eat a bunch of vegan nachos and watch some Netflix and sleep for 12 hours a night and do these kind of things that maybe the body needs. I just feel like, you heard me, Hannah, a little bit of sneezing, a little bit of runny nose. So again, I apologize if my energy is a little bit down, but we're here, and this is part of the practice, right? Just showing up as we are, and showing up, especially when we don't want to. I mean, of course, if we're completely sick, we don't go teach a yoga class. But when it's like sometimes we have those little resistances, like, oh, my voice is a little bit tired, or this or that. But when you're committed to something, and I know by the end of this hour, like I'm always so lit up, especially at the end, we get to connect with Yada, Sue, Brandon, Alice, Saga, and others who are joining live. It's this is what it's all about. But I
Yeah,
must say,
and that's
yeah.
what changes the thing is to be together in it,
Mm,
doesn't it? Because you're not really like you're a little bit tired, maybe your body is processing the shock of not being in the boot camp and maybe you know will hold you. We all of us are in it together, and then
yeah.
that's gonna typically it shifts it, right, doesn't it?
It totally does. It totally does. And I mean, overall, it just feels so good to be home, hanging out with my parents. I got here a day before you did, Hanna, so just hanging out with them. And, of course, I see Brandon here with us. He's still in the boot camp. I see him sitting in his bunk bed. Um, and so at the ashram, because there is no bathtub, so we do a cold shower, right? And so that's the best we can do, and it works. But when I came back here, Hanna, in this house, and filled that bathtub full of water, it's like a next level. Like when it's like ice cold. And then of course the last 2 days out at my brother's house, which is on the lake, breaking the ice, get through, and what we call avanto in Finland. Saga will know that name. The Finns will know the name, avanto, and just complete submersion into the lake. And oh my goodness, it feels so good. The only
So
problem is
we're talking about cold plunging now, not about washing ourselves, like,
yeah.
because it sounds like, oh, we don't have a bathtub at the ashram. To me it sounds like, oh, it's not a spa. But what you're describing right now is your cold plunging habits,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
And the unfortunate part of all of this is that on both mornings, Hanna was down there at the water, at the ice, and yet I am the only one who went into the water. You stood there with your camera. I'm just teasing.
Yeah, well, didn't you need a crew right there to capture the magic?
Not particularly, but yeah, no, I get you've done it before. You've done it, but it's I don't know, for me it feels so good after we went for a run yesterday and today, and just there's something about the just makes every cell in our body feel alive. And so really obviously not saying everybody out there necessarily needs to do the cold plunge, but it's like finding these practices, these sadhanas, these spiritual practices, because when I'm in there, I'm chanting some mantra and I'm meditating and I'm doing pranayama breathing. Not strong breathing, but just I'm focused on my breath. and it's like finding these practices that make us feel alive and that are fun, right?
Yeah.
That's the key, that we enjoy.
Well, it was fun to see you do it because there's like no resistance, there's no drama when you go in. And like now we're talking like between ice cubes inside a lake, like it's even different than a bathtub even at home, right? And you just super calmly just kind of slipped right in and sat there forever and ever. Whereas if I had been in the mix, it would have been a little more lively, a little less zen as an experience. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's how, I mean, it comes with training. Like, I mean, it's not like it's particularly comfortable any day, but there's something about like when we make a commitment to a practice and we know the health benefits, right? Like I'm not going to just go put myself in some extreme situation for my ego, but knowing the health benefits
Mm.
and knowing how it makes me feel after, and knowing the importance actually of what we say to ourselves and how we react in the moment, because we can be doing a yoga asana class and doing a half pigeon pose or something really uncomfortable, and if we're saying to ourselves, "Oh man, I hate this. This sucks. This is so uncomfortable. Oh my God, I hate yoga." I mean, we might say those things, right? If it's when it's really uncomfortable, and even when it is uncomfortable, that's when we want to focus on the gratitude and the whatever mantra, whatever intention we have. So yeah, that's what it's all about.
It's quite the next level practice to be able to do that. And the reason I share that how zen you are doing it is because I can see that your practice has made it work for you. Like it, you know, it's pretty amazing.
Mm. Yeah, we find the things that work, and I think it comes with time. There's like when we do it, when whatever we do consistently over time, we get good at.
Yeah.
And so, invitation to all our friends out there. Sue, you live in the Great White North. Now, there's got to be some cold lakes nearby. Actually, everybody except Yada, who's in Texas, we all live in cold climates. But no, finding the practices that really nourish us. What would you say though, Hanna? We just spent the past couple of days out at my brother's place on the lake, totally quiet, not a soul nearby around. What is your experience of being in the nature? You come from Finland, so you know nature, but what do you feel is like the importance of stepping away from the everyday life and just being in a mökki, being in a cottage and stoking the fire and living the simple life?
I think it's so healthy. I was just thinking about it today as we packed up. So healthy to be in a cozy, warm nature environment. Like what what that does to me is that it recharges me. And I know everyone who's ever been on any type of weekend getaway will recognize that feeling of being in nature, how beautiful that is and how calming it is.
Mm.
And though I'll say that the first days were like the first day I think it wasn't sunny and I feel like there's been many days now, even if I was in Europe, that I feel like I didn't see the sunlight for a long time. And then yesterday and today was sunny. And
Mm.
that really filled my soul. But in addition to the sunlight, I love that we stayed outside a lot. We helped your parents with something, so we stayed outside for hours and hours. We went for runs, and the fire, like all of that put together in nature, waking up when it's dark and quiet, and it's just really, really restorative, you know.
Mm.
And then knitting and fire, um, that was beautiful. I'm
Yeah.
so grateful for that.
Yeah, for me, it just reminds me like that's where I'm happy that this is home. This is where I'm gonna like I'm loving my time in Boston, hanging out with Brandon there at the ashram, and like my mind is thinking ahead. May 2025, done school, back in Muskoka, back in the countryside, and it's nice to have that environment. And at the same time, like not everywhere is perfect. We can't have everything. We can't have sun every day. Can't have whatever every day, but certain elements that nourish us. So that's cool. And you talked about, I mean, when we were talking about the cold plunge, you talked about the difference you see, from like a consistent practice. And you could say that's a transformation that comes when we show up consistently. And Hanna, I was when you were still in Finland, with your mom and your brother and your nieces, and you had me on the FaceTime with your family, and your mom said something about me after after I got off the phone.
No, my
What did
aunt
she
said
say?
it.
Oh, was it my
Oh
aunt?
no,
Was
and
it?
my mom said
Yeah.
it. My mom said, well, she said it in another context, but she said basically after seeing you on the call, she's like, Jack has had quite the transformation, hasn't he? She said, I said, yeah, like, yeah, he's like the master of transformation. I was thinking, like, that's all he does. But then I wanted to hear what she thinks. So I said, how so? And she said, like, I don't know, just his vibe. Like when we first met him, he had super long hair and he was so relaxed and chill. And then that's all she said. And so she didn't say like what she thought that what your vibe was now, but like I guess the hair was kind of symbolic in that context for her,
Yeah.
that you had longer hair than me basically when we met, like what I have now, and it goes like right under my breast, my hair now when it's
Yeah.
curly, and your hair is
Was
shaved
it? It was,
now.
yeah. It was down to my belly button when we met, and now got buzz cut. So I thought that was funny. But the other thing that showed up when I, I think I called or whatever to talk to you, and then you kind of put the FaceTime in front of your mom and your aunt and your brother and your nieces, and I wasn't ready. And obviously I was happy to do it. But what was interesting was that I couldn't find the words to speak, like because they out there from Finland, so I wanted to speak Finnish, but because I've been speaking Hindi so regularly at the ashram, like every single day, multiple times a day to the people from India, I'm practicing my Hindi, just to get a smile and get a laugh and have a little connection. And so since that's like the my second language I'm using right now, when I put on that spot with your family, even though I obviously am way more fluent in Finnish, I was like, I couldn't even say like hello or how are you, because I wanted to say it in Hindi. I wanted to say like namaste, aap kaise ho, and so that's what was coming to my mind. So again, just reminding us of how what we practice, we condition. And so
Yeah.
the way that we speak to ourselves as yogis, as yoga teachers, the way that we speak to ourselves, the language that we choose, whether we speak with essential language or a whole bunch of non-essential language, like it just conditions who we are. And it's not a matter of good and bad, right? It's not like it's bad that I'm more ready for Hindi than Finnish. It's just it is what it is as a result of practice.
Yeah. I think also it's like it speaks a lot to like, I don't know if this is the word you often use, is association, like who you associate with. Like for me, I speak 7 languages, but the languages that I hear are the ones that come out of my mouth. Like sometimes people ask me like, how do you keep the languages apart? And I say, I actually don't. Like in the transitions, I make a mess. Like I might speak the wrong language to the wrong person, and I oftentimes I'm aware of it, like whoops, that was like more Swedish to you, Jack, than maybe you and I would speak English or joke in Finnish, or
Mm,
not Italian to you. So if I say things in Italian to you, I am aware of the fact that this is not the right context, but it just comes out because I heard it a lot, like kind of like a child. And so what we're immersed in, we kind of leaves an impact on us, like you're
yeah.
saying, right?
Yeah. No, it's so true. And you talk about association, and it's important to have good association. That's just a really big part of bhakti yoga and the importance of it. And I'm a little bit, maybe I'm joking, but a little bit embarrassed to say I might be a bad influence on Brandon, our friend Brandon at the ashram. Um, so or we are on each other, because I've been like for the past 2 months that I've been living there, I've been doing a morning asana yoga practice, for 30 minutes before like the program begins, right? Go down there at 4 a.m., just after 4. And so I've been doing this practice every day for 2 months, no problem. And then Brandon came, and within 2 days of practicing with Brandon, we got kicked out. We got told no more. We got no more asana in kind of like the sacred shala, the yoga shala room, which is where they do all the mantra meditation. And we don't know exactly why. It could either be the fact that, when I did it before, I was doing a more gentle hatha practice. But of course, when Brand is there, this young buck, young guy, all ripped and good shape, so I step up the practice, and we were doing headstands. And it may have been the fact that I was up in a headstand in a dhoti, and my dhoti, which is basically a bed sheet, fell down around my body, and so my legs are up in the air. You can't see anything, but even in that culture, you don't really want bare legs up in the air at 4 o'clock in the morning. So either I caused it, or it could have been Brandon, because he was kicking up into headstand and maybe making a little bit of thumps as he came down. But no, joking aside, but obviously, we were told no more practicing here in the morning by some, not by somebody who really matters, but from this senior guy, and we're going to respect it. So we go upstairs, and we got resourceful. We found another space, and but I'm just joking. We're not bad association. We're good association.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
I think Buddha also said like the refuge number one is the sangha. It's the people you surround yourself with. Like I think it's a quite widely accepted um universal truth that the people we spend our time with leave an important impact on us.
yeah, absolutely. And that's why it's so important to choose who it is that we associate with. And another thing, hanging with Brandon, the last week's podcast was all about Brandon. We won't pull him in too much this time, but I will share, something I noticed the past couple of days just before I left. Brandon and I, we go for a run together in the morning, or we go work out together. We're doing our yoga together, and it's a lot of fun, and I really enjoy it. And that's an important element, is that we're having fun. Something I do notice is I'm a little bit less efficient, because like when I'm kind of standing, packing my bag, talking, it's on one way it's more fun, on another level it's kind of less efficient. But I guess that's the balance of life. Like that's something you would always suggest for me, Hanna, right? It's like, because I'm traditionally all about like efficiency and productivity, and everything on the clock, and I suppose there's a time and a place for that. But as long as we can get the things done, and we have fun doing our practices, then I think that's very important as well.
Well, that's
Would you
exactly
concur?
it. Yeah, like otherwise life passes you by, right? If
Yeah.
you're not present in an other way than just for the efficiency of it.
Yeah. That's interesting you say that, like that life passes you by. Like I noticed time is going so quickly. Like for me, like a month is just like boom, it's done. A semester, boom, it's done. And I mean, this is why I keep coming back to the question of myself, like, what is the point of life? Because, like, in one way, I'm doing these things, and I do love it. I love it, and it feels good, and it's an environment that allows me to thrive. Um, and at the same time, but it's not maybe some big thing, big going to, like you, Hannah, were just, I was just in Italy and hanging out with my girlfriends on the piazza and drinking the cappuccino, and that's what you needed. You needed a little getaway. For me, it's not like exciting and sexy per se, but it's like consistent and nourishing and thriving and like uplifting. And at the same time, I wouldn't use the word monotonous. Maybe some people would, but it is consistent. It's like the same thing every day, basically. Um, and so sometimes I reflect on that. It's like, what is the right, quote unquote, right way to spend our life? And of course, everybody's different, so we can't prescribe the same thing for everybody. But I guess I want to do it I want to do it right. And not right. I mean, I want to do it in a meaningful way, and I want to walk towards kind of the ultimate goal of life. And so that's why I guess I'm kind of seeking to understand what is the ultimate goal of life? What is the purpose of being here in this human body in these, handful of decades we have left? Um, yeah.
I'm thinking
Sh-
two things.
Okay.
Like first, I'm thinking the needs we have are different because you're a male and I'm a female. And I need to cultivate my female energy, I think, in order to feel fulfilled and happy and to be able to do my life purpose. And when I come together with someone male, like you, for example, then our dynamic together is very fruitful because it's almost like Shiva and Shakti. You're the consciousness and I'm the creation energy. You're the stability, I'm the instability. And then there's a dynamic and a tension, not a negative tension, hopefully, but like a charge that then creates and puts things into motion. And in order for me to be able to do that, I need to do the female things to cultivate. Not that I'm only female. There's a masculine energy in me that is needed sometimes, but my energetic home, let's say, and my emotional home is a female place. As for you, it's a male energy place. And so you need to cultivate that, I need to cultivate this. So we have different needs and how we spend our time and how we're present in the moment. And I'm wondering sometimes if the point of life is to be present to what is and penetrate the moment and see the divine in it and unite with the divine, each in our own ways. That could be one purpose. But then that can differ what the purpose for each of us is, right? And
Yeah.
and it's I think part of the purpose is to discuss it and be in inquiry around it, because maybe it's a navigation, and not about the destiny.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's really nice. It is important to understand that we are unique in that way. And the beautiful thing that I love about bhakti yoga, is that it's not necessarily about like renouncing everything and going to live in a cave or, living in a monastery. That is the path for some, but for us, for most of us who are, engaging in the world, it's like everything that we do, every action that we do in connection with the divine, whether we're serving the divine, whether we're connection with the divine, whether we feel one with the divine, depending on the different, Sanatan Dharma philosophy or the different, Vedic philosophy. Yeah, but that's great to understand that we are unique in that way. And oh, there's something else I was gonna say, but
Think about purpose, maybe.
no, it's slipped my mind. But yeah, I mean, just so you said again that you're how you are. So you're just kind of that creative, and you need that flexibility. Myself, kind of the structure, um, and that's not coming to me. Anyways, that was good.
It'll come later.
It'll come later. It'll come later when it's meant to. It's like it's so we want to know something that's interesting
Mhm.
is that sometimes I like make a note, like I'll be like, oh, I want to say this, and I look down and make a note. When I do that, I get like unpresent, and then all of a sudden I kind of sometimes can forget where I am, and then I forget. So I actually find I do best when I don't make notes mid podcast, but I just be fully present with you, and then I'm just right there with you. Maybe I'm not going to remember every little thing I could have said, but there's just like I don't know, it's just like a good reminder for me, and for us as yoga teachers, right? Because I think I'm the type where like, oh, if I have a good idea, I want to write it down. If I think of something I want to say, I write it down so I don't forget it. But then that can take me out of the presence of that moment. And now it's like, well, even though I wrote down one idea, but I forgot, some other things that were on my heart that I wanted to share as well. So that was a good little reminder.
Yeah. Yeah, and also to be able to trust the present moment, that being together present right here and not in your notes,
Yeah.
that the right things are, It's almost like connection. It creates connection when we're present.
Yeah.
And connection is a key thing in I think teaching yoga and in any human relationship, and sense of fulfillment for all of us is if we feel connected to others or the divine or both, possibly. Uh,
Yeah. But
right.
now I remembered what it was, and now I totally know why I couldn't figure it out. Because I was like looking at you, Hanna, and it wasn't coming to me. And I was looking at my notes and it wasn't coming to me. And I remember it was actually something that Brandon put in the chat. And because a few minutes ago, he said when we were talking about what is the purpose of life, and Brandon has said enjoying every moment of it. And I get that. Like I totally get that. And obviously that's like an important thing. And there's kind of an important distinction in there, right? Because actually, I mean, it wouldn't say under the definition of yoga, to enjoy every moment of life. Like in a way it's there, but it wouldn't be said exactly that way. Because of course, a lot of people believe that, hey, the whole point of life is to enjoy. And then that's what, gives people permission to indulge in good things, and indulge in perhaps not so good things. So it's kind of like this, we want to enjoy, we want to be blissful, we want to be high vibe, we want to, as Brandon said, enjoy every moment of life, and at the same time simultaneously be engaged in some kind of pious or dharmic behavior and action, like something meaningful, versus just hey, like for some people, and we do these things, some people, just like watching Netflix all the time, or um,
But that's
eating
not
ice
what it
cream.
means to enjoy every moment. Doesn't mean indulging or only the enjoyable things. People
Right.
give birth and they are fully present, and it's painful as F. And though it's maybe one of the things we could say, not maybe to enjoy, but deepest fulfillment you can experience in life. So, what I think it means maybe is when you penetrate the present moment, there is something about it that goes beyond the paradigms of good or bad, or enjoying or not enjoying, or indulging or not indulging. It could be
Yeah,
understood
totally.
in that way.
Totally. And that's why I'm saying, like, there's total truth in that. But some of us, I know I've been guilty earlier in life of totally, you know seeking enjoyment in the wrong places. So I
Right.
guess I just wanted to make that distinction, that it's possible to seek it in the wrong places, and it's absolutely possible to seek it in a very fulfilling, meaningful way.
Yeah, but that's numbing out. That's not really living fully and being fully awake. Like look at
I
the numbing out behaviors. That's
Yeah,
different than seeking enjoyment.
I agree, but I'll tell you, I thought I was. Like for me,
Yeah.
I think back to my teenage years and my 20s, from the age of 14 to 29. The only thing I wanted to do was drink and smoke and party and be with that was the only thing that mattered. And to me, that was like the funnest, most enjoyable thing in the world. But yet I was totally numbing out. It was not healthy at all. But if you had asked my teenage 20s self, I would have said, like, yeah, the purpose of life is to have fun and to enjoy every moment. And so I thought I was doing it, and I wasn't doing it in a healthy way. So I think we're saying the same thing. We're just kind of understanding, we don't want to misunderstand or be too black and white,
Mhm.
right? It's just so in that way we want to, I mean, Ananda, right? It's your name, Ananda Shri. Like Ananda is a bliss. It's a goal. It's an intention of the yoga practice, and so we certainly want to cultivate that and live in that and share that. And
My
I
name
mean
is
that's
divine bliss, which I think also points to that there is a higher type of bliss than numbing out. I hope,
for sure,
right?
for sure. And I'm not if I all of my even to this day, there's lots of things that I seek out to have fun and to enjoy that I wouldn't say are necessarily connected to divine bliss. I mean, hey, I'll call myself out. Last night, sorry, Brian, my brother, if you listen to the podcast, I ate so many of my brother's nuts. He's got a nut collection. Oh my goodness. Like normally I just buy like almonds or walnuts because those are like, and I get like sprouted, organic, da da da. And my brother, he had the cashews and the pistachios and the pecans and oh my god, they're so good, and they were like roasted and salted. You know, no sugar. I wouldn't have any with sugar. But point being, I ate like three big bowls of nuts, well past my normal eating time, and I was seeking enjoyment. I was genuinely seeking enjoyment because I love the taste of salted roasted nuts, and I wouldn't call that like divinely bliss, uh, in enjoyment. And it obviously it's not the worst thing in the world either. It's not like, come on, nothing happened. I'm okay. Um, but it's like, I guess, and that's where we have to be kind to ourselves as well. Because it's like, coming back to living at the ashram, like there, it's very conducive to cultivate consistent, healthy habits when there's only healthy vegetarian food available. And there's everybody, most people are getting up early to do the morning practice. It's really, it's healthy to have that. And most of us are not going to live in a boot camp uh, ashram like that for the rest of our lives. So then we have to be able to take those practices out to when we're, house sitting for our brother and there's tempting nuts all over the place, and being able to resist. I'm just kidding, but yeah, it's a practice. It's a balance.
Yeah. I guess like, yeah, it's again about the balance and what, you are looking forward to this time to come home and relax and
Yeah.
that's part of it, right? Isn't it? That
And I do it. I do when I'm at the ashram, I do it fully. And when I come home and relax and indulge a little bit, I do it fully.
yeah, you're fully in the present moment.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but I do it. I do things extreme and fully. Um, but you know what? We actually, Hanna, just switching topic here. You and I got a very nice compliment from one of my classmates at the in that ritual and the life cycle course. So I met with Professor Diana Eck on an office hours, and so backing up a little bit, I had shared we were talking about like marriages, and kind of ceremonies and rituals around marriages, and then somebody mentioned in class that there's so many rituals for beginnings, but there's very few rituals for endings. Maybe, I mean, a funeral could be one that, that's one that we're aware of, but there's so many rituals out there for beginnings and very few for endings. And so I shared my post. Everybody shares in this community forum with the class, a reflection on that. And I shared about our uncoupling ceremony, about how, we, very maturely, very amicably, very mutually together made this decision, lived with it for a few months, and then had this beautiful uncoupling ceremony on New Year's Eve, and with cacao, and pulled a couple of angel cards, and shared some memories, shared some tears, more me than you. And Hunna will tell you, we watched a movie last night. I'm like crying, and Hunna's like, I can't believe you're crying. I'm emotional. Like I really get into and feel movies. It's called The Proposal with Sandra Bullock and I forget his name, but anyways, now I got off track. But the point being, we had this beautiful uncoupling ritual, and I shared this with the community, and the teacher's like, oh, I really appreciated your post, and I shared a link to our Facebook post, and the students also really enjoyed it. And the one student is a divorce lawyer, and Abby, and she's like, would you guys be willing to meet with, I mean, she's kind of half joking, but she's like, I would love for you guys to mentor my clients, because like she's dealing with divorces, probably that are not always going so well. And it's like, why can't, I know every circumstance is different, but it's nice when things can be handled maturely, yogically, and and just the point being, there was a completion of a phase one type of relationship, and a continuation of an even better version of a new relationship, a friendship. So
Yeah.
kudos to you, because that was probably your idea to do the ritual. Let's be honest.
Yeah, and I think like what I think about it now is that it's important kind of in marking time, like here's a before and an after. That's why I think it's important. And then also, for we our uncoupling has been a process of a long time, like we've had hard times. We didn't need a lawyer yet. I hope we never will,
Hmm.
and we have navigated all the difficulties with the tools that we have. Like we have fought, we have cried, we have hugged, we have questioned ourselves. Like we gave ourselves the time to process all of this. And we gave ourselves the space to have all the emotions. And I think often about how when we got together, we were kind of afraid of the risk of falling in love with someone. And the way I feel like I remember we justified it, or where it made it less scary, was that we said that we're always going to be best friends no matter what. And
Hmm.
that has shown to be true. Like we are able to keep our friendship the main thing and our relationship in this shape, you know?
Hmm.
And that's fantastic. Like I don't know how other people do it, but I think that it comes through us allowing and being with what is, all of the emotions, whether it's easy or hard. Right?
Yeah, I love that. And it's interesting you talk about the friendship, because we were talking about the marriage rituals in India as an example, and there's 7 steps. I'm just looking at my notes here. It says commitment to, yeah. So what they were saying, that really what sustains the years ahead, and so this is within the context of a marriage, but we could still think a relationship. The seventh and the final step is commitment to friendship. So even within, or especially within, uh, an intimate relationship or a marriage, or really any relationship, is really that commitment to friendship. And you gonna say something?
No, I wasn't,
Oh,
but
okay. Well, then I'll add on. And then we were also talking about adulthood, and Hannah, you might say that I'm not in a position to talk about being an adult.
I hope by now you are.
I'm a little slow. But we talk about kind of the three issues that tend to come up, as being an adult and looking forward into being in a relationship. And the first one is love and intimacy. The second one is readiness for a long-term commitment. And the third one is our ability to give ourselves wholly to a relationship with someone else. And that's like those are big things, right? I mean, I remember, before meeting you, and before, relationships, like long-term commitment, it's like it's at least for me, it was like scary, or it was like it somehow felt like forever. So it's like, well, oh, I don't want to start this, because that's like a big commitment. I remember that stage. And I guess we got to think now as yogis and yoga teachers, within the context of our relationships, but also in the context of our practices and the path that we're on, like really thinking about long-term commitments.
Yeah, and what I love about bhakti yoga is that it's relational. It is about a relationship, or all of the relationships, depends how you want to see it.
Yeah.
And that we come to fruition through relationships. That's what Happy Jack Yoga community is all about. It's all about us having a relationship with each other, all of us. And everybody's contributions and commitment to each other is what makes it magical. And, you know, I have a wall here full of post-its where we wrote down what things people have said in the Google reviews about Happy Jack Yoga.
Mhm.
95% of them is about community, the people they
Yeah.
meet here in Happy Jack
Yeah.
Yoga. So there's that.
Yeah. No, I love that. And we only have, it's important to, of course, again, surround ourselves with people that lift us up and believe in us. And I feel like, spending time with my parents this past week, who are older, both in their 70s, both are slowing down considerably, and just, aging as happens to all of us. And just, obviously, Hanna, you've lost several people in your life. And just thinking about like the delicacy of life. And I was sharing with you, Hanna, um, at Harvard Square, which is like I walk through there pretty much every day at school, and it's like the hub, the center of campus, and there's always lots of amazing things happening, busking and just so much good vibes, and naturally there's always a couple of homeless people, who pass through there, and there's always this guy, and he's in a wheelchair, and he's kind of sitting in the same spot every day, and he's kind of like kind of reaching out, trying to get people's attention, not obnoxiously, but trying to engage. Maybe he's going to ask for money, I'm not sure. I never took the time. I'm always, of course, sadly, I'm always about efficiency and productivity, and I've got just enough time to get to my next class, or to get to lunch, to get to the next class, or whatever the case is. And I never took the time to meaningfully connect with him. I would share eye contact sometimes, and I say a little prayer, a little mantra to him, and a smile, and I would see him, but I truthfully I never took the time to stop and connect with him. And then all of a sudden the other day, I come by there, and there's his wheelchair, but he's not there. And so on his wheelchair, there's basically a memorial. James Lappin, June 24th, 1964 to February 29th, 2024. And it's got a little story there. He and picture of him and flowers, and I guess he'd had a heart attack. And it just reminded me, the delicacy of life. And I mean, I don't need to tell that to you, Hanna. You know better than anybody, certainly me. Um, and it's not like it's kind of like what the first thought that came to mind is like, well, I saw him the day before. And so if I saw him, and if I somehow knew this homeless person is going to have a heart attack tonight and he's going to be gone tomorrow, I absolutely would have like been so present with him and wanted to connect with him and send love to him. But of course, we can never know those things. So I was just busy doing my stuff. And if, of course, that was one individual that I didn't really have any connection with. But then I think about that like with people who are in my life. And I think that's why I'm making such an intention, an effort these days to spend time with my mom and my dad and even my brother and sister, even though they're still young and super healthy. Like, because I guess again, as you know, we just never know, and so I guess we need to choose those people who are closest to us, our loved ones, our friends, family, and 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 cultivate meaningful connection.
Yeah, it's like, I wonder if it's got something to do with like us maturing into like middle age and becoming more like feeling less eternal. Like I think when we're young, we think like nothing's gonna touch us. Like, what are the chances? Like we're just think we're forever green and that life is eternal. It feels that way, right? When we're young, for most of us.
Mhm.
And then at this stage, we notice that things start to shift and change, and we lose people, and we have the concrete examples in our lives of losing loved ones or strangers. And then that makes us a little bit vulnerable
Mm.
with life. And I feel like that vulnerability has been very alive in me since I was 31, because that's when I lost my husband unexpectedly out of the blue.
Mm.
And so it's made my life a little bit more like like I'm less afraid to love and engage,
Mm.
and even if my trauma sometimes will make me not make all the brave decisions, I do have that, like my fingers on the pulse of life a lot, thinking like this moment, this moment, this moment, even if it's not about death, I know it's not, this moment's not coming back. And we're
Mm,
young right now. I feel young right now. I feel like I feel like I'm in my prime. Like this is the time when I get to make decisions and live fully. And this is true for all of us all the time. And
mm,
then, health scares can come and slow us down and weigh us down. But still, we're in this moment as deeply engaged as we allow ourselves to be. And that makes my life meaningful. That makes me love more intensely and see the sunlight and appreciate even the difficult moments when Brandon says enjoying the moment, even the difficult ones, there's some bliss in them when you're aware of the fact that it's a fleeting moment
mm.
and we can interact with it. It's to me it's magical. And
Yeah.
that's what lights me up like this. That's what makes me a more blissful person
Mm,
because I know that this moment is all I have. Of course, I expect and hope to have an ocean of million blissful moments like this one and other ones and deeper ones and higher ones and whatever, all of it. But that's what makes me come alive. And that's
mm,
what makes all of this meaningful and purposeful. When you ask what the purpose of life is, this is the purpose of life for me. And that doesn't mean that I don't need to have a long term plan as well. I do.
mm,
But it comes through this moment. It reveals itself as a result of this moment. There's no bypassing.
mhm.
And I love that you have these reflections. I love discussing this kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like it somehow comes with maturity or with, I don't know, with, as you say, the when we lose people or when we see people, pass away, like that's when we kind of have these realizations and wake up of like, hey, this is every moment matters.
Yeah, it
Every
makes
single
us
one.
vulnerable because we know that the way we engage in life and with each other could also mean that like it's kind of risky to be a human being and love intensely and be deeply engaged in the moment, which is why I think a lot of us kind of retreat and we kind of exist instead of fully being alive.
Mm. And the good thing is that, coming back to yoga and, being a yogi, being a yoga teacher, the practices that we do are very much conducive to bring us into the present moment, right? It's like when we sit and we meditate, when we chant mantra, when we do pranayama breathing, when we do asana, it's like while we're doing it, and I know for myself when I'm like laying there in shavasana or sitting at the end of a meditation, like I'm not dwelling on the past, and I'm even though most of my life I'm like obsessing about the future, for some brief moments I feel like I'm just so focused and grateful for that present moment. And so these are the kind of things that we can share as yoga teachers at the beginning of our class. We don't do a 60-minute podcast at the beginning of class, but just giving a taste, setting the context of like, hey, this is why we're here, not just to get a six pack, although maybe you will, but this is the real practice of yoga.
I think yogic practices are life skills. These are
Mhm.
life skills. It's not about the yoga pose and how bendy you are, although that can be a way to penetrate the present moment and your armor and your transformation and the flow of life.
Mm.
But these are the things you just mentioned, like meditation, mantra, all of breathing, all of it are tools to be and have a deeper experience of this moment and also help cope with it when it gets rough.
Yeah, yeah, because that's so good. And I feel like, again, for us, as coming back to us as yogis and yoga teachers, really thinking about how we share ourselves with others. Coming back to just sharing an experience I had at the ashram, and Brandon's a little bit aware, he was there for some of it. There's always these beautiful monks or like senior bhakti yogis that come from India or come from different parts of the world, and they pass through the Boston ashram to share, to teach, to share their wisdom with us. And I will share. There's one individual, and of course, I'm not going to mention names. Brandon knows who I'm talking about. There's one individual who, has an ability to frustrate me a little bit, and
What?
I'm
A
not.
monk is frustrating you?
Yeah, yeah. And I know, um, obviously I don't blame him or Chris because he has the most beautiful intention. He wants to help, he wants to serve, he wants to engage us in these practices. But what I will say, and of course I'm not mentioning names, some people have a more tendency to preach and to lecture and to kind of dictate, because in one way they have more experience in this particular path, like they got way more experience than me. However, that actually doesn't matter. It's if we're not effective at communicating, if our, even though we got a bunch of wisdom, if we're doing it in a way that's like feels lecturing or preaching, like I just put my walls up, even though I'm pretty good at like, check my ego at the door, but it's like it's just not working for me. Versus, and that this is an exception because most of them are so good at like really listening, and we sit down for lunch, and for some of them I'll sit there for 3 hours, and I'll ask a question, I'll share what's on my heart and ask a question, and it's so obvious that they are so present with me and they are really hearing what I'm saying, the essence of what I'm saying. And then when they respond, it's not in a lecture. It's like it's from a personal experience, it's in a story, and it's really getting to the heart of the matter of what I was asking about. And there's like nothing, I feel like that's one of the most healing things in the world. Cause like here I was carrying this frustration. I was joking, I would never do it. But I joking to Hanna, I was like, I almost punched out a monk. Obviously I didn't think that. I wouldn't really punch out a monk. I wouldn't punch out anybody. But this one individual had the ability to bring up that frustration in me where I actually did. Brandon saw me and I did just walk away. Um, and on the flip side, being in the presence of someone who just like holds the space and is present and listens, like I feel like it's very healing for me. And I guess that's a big part of what I suppose therapy is, right? Therapy is not lecturing and preaching. I'm
Or
gathering.
somebody like reading your mind and telling you what to do and where you went wrong in your childhood. That's not therapy.
Right. So just having this individual, I swear. And I suppose that's one thing that all of us do here. Like when we have our sharing circles and we have our satsang and we have our different conversations, sometimes I suppose, Hanna, you and I might share some tips, but I feel like a lot of the time, all of us are just holding space for one another and just hearing one another and sharing our own, heart. And it's just such a great reminder. And I think sometimes we have that. We have to experience, what doesn't work for us in order to understand what does. And not to blame this, particular younger monk, because I'm sure I've been guilty of it. I've sure I've been guilty many times to you, Hanna, of like preaching or lecturing or something. It's like we all have those tendencies at times. And it's just a
But
great reminder to know what's most effective.
it comes down to connection again, right? If
Mm,
if there's a deep connection, then I want to hear what your perspective is on what I just shared, for example.
yeah.
And as you say, yes, it's therapeutic to be really seen for who we are and to have each other's support and understanding as we navigate life. But that that is created through connection between us
Mm,
and between you and I, Jack. Like we have the words for this kind of thing. So sometimes I'll say, Jack, I need to be coached now. Please
mm,
coach me on this because I can't figure this out. I need to have someone tell me what to do or give me options, and then you
mm,
coach me. And then other times when I just need to be heard, I'll say, listen, I don't need to be coached right now. What I need is for you to hear me. And then you do that because we've
mm.
learned how to do that with each other.
Yeah, and it's actually so helpful to set those boundaries and to be able to communicate that to one another in any kind of relationship. Because in the early years, I just default to coaching. And that doesn't work because actually way more often than not, you need to be heard.
Yeah.
People need to be heard and listened to. And yeah, maybe once in a while I need some coaching. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's a great distinction. To be able to have that openness and sharing.
Yeah. But that's
Nice.
interesting that you had that experience and that you were able to navigate it without punching a monk.
I would, yeah, totally. I say that as a joke. Obviously, I wouldn't, but like that tendency, like not the tendency to punch, but the tendency to, uh, like it still wasn't perfect. It wasn't bad. I actually keep apologizing to Brandon. I'm like, I'm so sorry that like on your first day at the ashram, you have to see me get flustered. And he's like, dude, you just walked away from a guy who is not speaking so well, so like he's like nothing to apologize for. But I guess next level will be to be able to get to recognize that some people are gonna preach to us, you know. My dad, some people are gonna lecture to us, some people are going to talk in a certain way. And actually, I joke with my dad, but like because he's been doing it my whole life, now I can not get triggered because I come to expect it. It's like other people, maybe in the beginning you were getting a bit triggered, Hunter, or other people, but I'm like, hey, I know who he is, and it's just I hold the space for that. But in that particular instance, I didn't expect it from that particular monk. And it's so I guess my opportunity is to get to a space where not needing everybody to be a certain way. Not of course it's nice to associate with people who are a certain way and hold the space and listen and are present. But reality is, none of us are going to go through life exclusively interacting with people like that. Um,
Yeah, and it's like not a really great way of existing in the world when the other people need to be changed in order for me to have a happy life. Like that's in any relationship, I think that would be a red flag.
yeah,
Like if the underlying expectation or assumption is that the other person needs to be changed because they are wrong and they are this and they are that, that's not going to be a very blissful place or like a fruitful place for growth. Like some dynamics might have to change. And that's what you're saying. Like it would be great to be able to be with a person who is preaching or doing something that is difficult, maybe for whatever reason, and still have compassion and look at the situation from a different space than judgment or trigger, right?
yeah, totally. Yeah, and this is part of the journey. This is part of the work. Fantastic conversation. Time flew. Oh my goodness. I must say, I feel myself compelled. I want to apologize in a way because we just did like opening kind of catch up on different topics. But I feel like because you were away last week, we had a great podcast with Kristen, but you were away. I had like double the amount of updates. Still didn't get through all of it, but got through a bunch of it. So we didn't do a hot seat. But we're back next week. We'll get back into the hot seat, and so
You
our
will be on the
friends.
hot seat, just so that's clear.
I'll be on the hot seat. I love being on the hot seat.
If
Bring it on.
anyone has any hot seat questions, please
Send
send
them
them
in.
to me.
Yeah. Info at happyjackyoga.com.
Yeah.
Friends, thank you so much for being here. Make it an amazing rest of the day, and we'll connect again soon. Namaste.
Namaste, friends. Thank you for being here.